Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm so excited that you guys are joining me again today. Today's lesson, we're going to be going into and starting a new series on the book of Genesis, looking at one of my favorite characters in the whole Bible named Joseph. And I think it's going to be a great time of studying through God's word and learning about this character and just how awesome it is that God works and he's in control and he's sovereign even in the craziest circumstances. But before we get into the lesson, I have a really exciting announcement that I think you guys are all going to love. I just talked to Chris today, and we talked about the idea of doing a lesson that deals with how other people see us. I know it's really easy to wrestle with feelings of just self-consciousness, like you worry about what other people think of you, about how you look, about your appearance. And, really that's a reality for a lot of us. We deal with wanting to look good in front of others. And so we have a fun thing that we're going to do for tomorrow's video. If we get 30 views, Chris told me, now you can check with Chris and confirm, but he told me that if we get 30 views on this video, tomorrow's video, that he will either dye his hair a crazy color, you guys can pick, we'll give you a couple options tomorrow in tomorrow's video, or he'll shave off his hair completely. So just a crazy thing. I'm so happy we have Chris along. He's always so much fun and just provides just a lot of fun and excitement. So tomorrow I think is going to be a lot of fun to see if we can get 30 views on that video. So make sure you watch tomorrow and make sure you share it with your friends. If we can get 30 views, Chris will either dye his hair a color of your choosing, or if you guys would rather, he'll shave off his hair completely. So just a funny, exciting thing for tomorrow. Hopefully you guys will watch and enjoy just hearing about how you can be comfortable and confident in who you are because of Christ and what he's done for you and because of how much he loves you. So make sure you check in tomorrow. I guess from there, we're going to move right into our lesson. Like I said, we're going to be studying the book of Genesis. I think it's going to be so much fun looking at Joseph's life. Before we get into it, I want to ask you guys, I have 3 riddles for you. I don't know how many of you enjoy doing riddles, but I have 3 riddles, and they all 3 have the same answer. So see if when you hear these riddles, you can try to think of what the answer might be. The first one, these are a bit of tongue twisters, so if I mess them up, you'll have to forgive me. So here's the first one, riddle number 1. You call for me when you wish or roll. You're down on me, but I'm in the pot of gold. Don't ever doubt that I can be good, because you basically want me if you knock on wood. Okay, so that's the first riddle. I don't know if you guys already have it now. Maybe type down in the comments what you think the answer is, and we'll move on to the second riddle. So this one's shorter. It says, you run out of me every time you push yours. You run out of me every time you push yours. So maybe do you have it now? Not sure if it's clear by now. Hopefully with this third one, you'll be able to get it. This is the third riddle. The cousin of chance, good fortune's best mate. I'm what everyone seeks when unsure of their fate. Okay, so those are the 3 riddles. I'll give you guys some time. Put down in the comments what you think the answer is to these 3 riddles. It's the same answer for all 3. So if you didn't get it by now, the answer is luck. So these all 3 deal with luck. The answer to all 3 of these riddles is luck. And, many of us have said, I'm sure everyone has said good luck to a friend before they go in for a test, or good luck to a teammate, when they go up to bat in a baseball game, or whatever it is, good luck to somebody. We've all said good luck. We've used that phrase, and maybe some of us believe in luck more than others. But today we're going to kind of see another word that sort of contrasts with luck, and that's the word sovereignty. And now we believe, because of the Bible, that God is sovereign. And the definition of sovereign is this. It's exercising supreme authority or rule. It's being in control. And we believe that our God, the God of the universe who created everything, he is in control. And so today, as we look at Genesis and we read this story, we see Joseph's life, I want you guys to realize that nothing was left up to chance. The events of Joseph's life didn't happen through luck or through either good luck or bad luck. They happened because God is sovereign. He is in control. And because of that, we can trust him. we can rely on him. We can know that he's going to come through and he's going to provide for us. I think of one of my favorite verses out of Romans that says that God works all things together for the good of those who love him. And so you can know that even in the craziest circumstances, as we'll see in Joseph's life, that God is in control. I think it's really powerful. As we look at the story of Joseph, and I'm really excited to share with you. So just a little bit of background on the book of Genesis. It's all about beginnings, right? We see the beginning of creation. God breathes the universe into existence. He speaks it into existence. He creates man and woman, and he begins humanity just by speaking it into being. And Genesis chapters 1 to 11 deal with kind of the beginnings of this world. And then we see in Genesis chapters 12 to 50, we see the beginning of the nation of Israel. And Israel is God's chosen people. And so as we find ourselves in this story, we're looking at the nation of Israel and some of its beginnings in this story. And so we're going to be looking at Genesis chapter 37. That's where we're going to be looking at Joseph's life. And I think we're going to see some really awesome and incredible things in this story, just how sovereign and in control God really is. So what I want to highlight for you guys today, we're going to break this one into two parts. And in the first part, we're going to be talking about 4 signs of trouble in Jacob's family. Now, I said we're going to be talking about Joseph and his life, but Joseph is the son of Jacob. Jacob also is called Israel. And so he's kind of the father of this nation of Israel. And the person that Israel is named after is Jacob. Jacob, Israel, same person, 2 different names for the same person. So we're going to see these 4 signs of trouble in Jacob's family throughout this story. And so you can turn with me, if you have your Bibles now, it'd be a great time. Turn to Genesis chapter 37. And we're going to see these 4 signs of trouble. There's trouble brewing in Jacob's family. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see that really everybody is involved in this trouble. So the first sign that there's trouble in this family is that Joseph was a tattletale. Now, I'm sure we've all known that person who is always telling on somebody in school, who's maybe the teacher's pet, or they're always finding the flaws and pointing it out to the teacher, running to the teacher to tell on whoever it is. I'm sure we all know somebody like that. Now, we don't really know why Joseph told on his brothers, but we're going to read right here in Genesis chapter 37 that he was a tattletale. So right here, Genesis chapter 37, verse 2, it says, "These are the generations of Jacob." So again, Jacob's family. This is the subject of today's lesson, is Jacob's family and his children. It says, "Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report to them, or of them, to their father." So right there, Joseph brought a bad report of his brothers to his father. So like I said, we don't really know why Joseph was telling on his brothers. We don't know the reason behind. The Bible doesn't tell us. Maybe he really just was trying to do the right thing. Maybe he was just trying to be a good person, and he noticed that his brothers were doing something wrong, and his father needed to know about that. Or maybe there's always a chance too that that Joseph was just trying to suck up to his dad. He was just trying to to look good, or to make his brothers look bad. We don't really know why Joseph told on his brothers, but we see right away that Joseph was a tattletale. He told on his brothers. From there, I think the second thing that we're going to see in this passage, the second sign of trouble, is that Jacob played favorites. Now, we all have favorites, right? I have a lot of different favorites of a lot of different things. For coffee, some of my favorite countries where coffee comes from, Kenya and Ethiopia, are probably my top 2 countries. I really love the coffee that comes from those two places. As far as sports, I've always been a fan of hockey and swim. Those are probably my 2 favorite sports. For music, of course, I have my favorite artists and my favorite movies. I have my favorite directors. I have all kinds of favorites, right? We all have favorites. Maybe for you, it's your whatever your favorite food might be, or a favorite movie or TV series. We all have favorites. I know one of my favorite foods is barbecue ribs. My dad, a few weeks ago, he made ribs in the smoker and smoked them for 6 hours, and they were unbelievable. They felt right off the bone. They were so delicious. So those are some of my favorites. But now if I were to ask you, okay, who's your favorite between your mom and your dad? Or who's your favorite between your grandma and grandpa, right? Those are some awkward questions, right? You probably would feel uncomfortable answering that. And hopefully you don't have a favorite between your mom and dad. Hopefully you love them equally. And right, because in a family, there's supposed to be unconditional love, right? My parents, they love me and my brother, or at least I hope they do. They love me and my brother equally. Maybe they love Ethan more. I don't know. But I believe that my parents love both Ethan and I equally. And that's how it's supposed to be in a family, where the parents love their children equally. And hopefully the same you could say for your parents, that you love your mom and dad both equally. But here in this story, we see that Jacob is playing favorites. And this is another sign of trouble that we'll see right away in this story, that Jacob is clearly has a favorite. And we see that in Genesis chapter 37, verses 3 and 4. So you can read with me in verses 3 and 4. It says this: Now Israel, or Jacob, like I said, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a robe of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all of his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. So here we're seeing that Jacob, this is a bad situation, because he very clearly loves Jacob more than the rest of his brothers. And I'm sure that would hurt deeply. I mean, can you imagine if your parents very clearly loved your brother or sister more than they loved you? I mean, I guarantee you that would hurt you, and that would probably make it hard to love your brother or sister that that your parents are playing favorites with. I'm sure that would make it hard. I mean, I can imagine if my parents loved Ethan more than they loved me, I probably wouldn't get along so well with Ethan. It's just the way that it works, right? We often feel those feelings of jealousy, and we see that the brothers felt that way too. They hated their brother because their father loved him more than them. And so that's the first another sign of trouble that we see. Not only is Jacob a tattletale, Joseph is a tattletale, but his father Jacob loves Joseph more than all of his other brothers. So you start to see that the trouble is brewing in this family. There's kind of some turbulence, you could say, in this family. Now moving on, the third sign of trouble is that Joseph, now this is crazy, Joseph announces his superiority to his whole family. And we'll see this in verses 5 to 10. Joseph has these dreams. And I'm going to read for you guys verses 5 to 10. Now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright. And behold, your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us? Or are you indeed to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, "Behold, I have dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me." But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you?" And so this is, I can't even imagine this. I mean, can you try to wrap your mind around what's going on here? Joseph is telling these dreams to his brothers about how they were all bowing down to him. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, think about this in my own family. If Ethan he comes home from work, he's at Nino's right now. He waltzes in in through the door, you know, a chip on his shoulder. He's all proud and his nose is in the air, and he says to me, my mom and my dad, you all need to bow down to me, right? I just had this dream. I was daydreaming while I was slicing meats at Nino's, and I was daydreaming, and I had this dream that you were all bowing down to me. I mean, can you imagine what that would be like? It's just crazy. And that's what's happening here. Joseph is telling his family about these dreams that he had, that they were bowing down to him. I mean, what a crazy thing to share with your family. And would you not be a little self-conscious? I mean, I wouldn't, even if I had a dream like that, I wouldn't want to share it with my family, because that just comes across so prideful and arrogant. So, you know, Joseph, now on top of all this trouble, right? He's the favorite of Jacob. He's telling on his brothers. And now he's saying, you all need to bow down to me because I just had this dream that you guys were bowing down to me. I mean, what a crazy story. So that's the third sign of trouble. We see now Joseph is in a weird place where he's telling his brothers about these dreams that he had where they were worshiping, bowing down and worshiping him. And then the fourth sign of trouble, this is the last one, and we'll wrap things up. I know this one is going a little bit longer than usual. The last sign of trouble is that the older brothers did not confront the sin that they had in their own hearts. You guys will notice there's 3 times in this passage that we see that his brothers hated him. That word hate is used 3 times in this passage. In verse 4, it says that they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. In verse 5, it says, and when he told this to his brothers, they hated him even more. And then in verse 8, it says, so they hated him even more for his dreams and his words. So 3 times his brothers hated him more and more. They're growing this bitterness, this hatred in their hearts towards their brother. And then finally in verse 11, and it says, and his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the saying in mind. And so we see that these brothers are really wrestling with deep feelings of hatred towards their brother, and they're not confronting that. I mean, this is a difficult situation for them to be in. Their brother is really acting in a way that would not be enjoyable. Man, can you imagine living with a brother like that? But they are building up this hatred in their hearts. And I want to point you guys to a powerful passage in the Gospel of Matthew where Jesus talks about the heart and these hateful desires that we often have. It says in verse 18, in chapter 15, verse 18 of Matthew, but what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a person. And so what we see in these brothers is a dirty and unclean heart. They have this hatred, this evil hatred towards their brother, this jealousy towards their own family. And so you guys can see from all 4 of these signs of trouble that this family, it's in a mess, right? It's really in a mess. There's a whole lot of bad things going on in Jacob's family. And Joseph is kind of in the center of it all. He is kind of the at the heart of all of this trouble in Jacob's family. And what we see is that Jacob's involved in it, right? He's playing favorites. Joseph is involved in it. He's telling his brothers these crazy dreams that he's having. And even his brothers are involved in it, storing up this hatred in their hearts. And so we see from this story that this family's in a lot of trouble. But what I want you guys to see, and what we'll see in the next video, is the hope, right? This was all about the trouble, all about the problems and this uneasiness that there is in this family, in Jacob's family. And maybe you can relate to that. Maybe your family's going through some rough things. Maybe you have a bad relationship with your parents or with one of your siblings. I mean, it's really common for families to go through tough times where they struggle, they wrestle with bitterness and hatred for even their own family members. And so maybe you can relate to Joseph in this story. Jacob's family's kind of in a lot of trouble right now. But what I want you guys to see, and what we're going to talk about next time, is how God is still in control. None of this happened by luck or happenstance. None of this was left up to chance. God is in control all the time. He is in control, and he loves everyone in this story. He deeply knows and loves them, even in the midst of their sin and their hatred for one another. So make sure you guys check in next week as we continue this story and we see how God was in control the whole way. looking after Joseph and his family, even though they were at odds with each other. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys listening. I know this was a longer video, but I hope you guys were encouraged by this, and I hope that you guys check in next week to see how we can trust that God is sovereign, that he's in control even in the midst of the worst circumstances, even in the midst of tough family relationships. So thanks again for watching. Make sure you check in tomorrow. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to be talking about just how we often wrestle with these feelings of wanting to please others, wanting to look good in front of others, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. Hopefully we can reach 30 views so that Chris will have to dye his hair or maybe shave it off. Definitely check in for tomorrow's video and share it with as many friends as you can. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching. I miss you guys. I'll be praying for you guys, and we'll see you in the next video.